Hi guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I'm coming to you from Germany. Today is Saturday, the 16th of February 2019. I have already actually recorded the entire episode and spent like 1.5 hours making it, editing it, and then realized that the entire sound was off. And there was a mistake with my phone and so on, and the entire beautiful video was not viewable. So here I am recording again, which always presents a couple of challenges. First of which is that I constantly don't remember what I already talked about. So anyways, I'm trying to re-record this and I hope it goes well. If I gloss over anything too fast, please do get in touch or check my project pages where you can always find all of the details in terms of my projects and yarns and such. And I just hope that we will get through this, and if you're watching this, obviously I somehow managed to upload something. So welcome. If you're a new viewer, hello, and if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. I hope that you will enjoy this podcast nonetheless. Even though right now I'm kind of hating podcasting live, but that will pass, and I have so much stuff to show you guys. I've already shown you guys, but I'll show it to you again because it is just too beautiful to disappear into computer wastebasket nirvana. So there we go. So today I will talk about finished objects, works in progress, acquisitions, and life in general, and I will start off with some admin stuff, knit-alongs, giveaways, and such. I have some cold coffee with me, but hey, it's coffee, and it's in a Christmas mug because it's only February and I can do whatever I want. So yeah, where should we start? Let's start with a giveaway. I had Sarah get in touch with me, and Sarah is the designer behind Imagined Landscapes. And she has beautiful designs, all kinds of designs, and some of them are some gnome patterns. So that in itself is really cool and unlike anything I've done before. And what Sarah is doing, she is hosting a gnome mystery knit along. So she has designed a new gnome pattern, like a stuffed knitted gnome. And it's going to be like a mystery where you get a couple of clues every, I don't know, I think it's 4 or 5 clues, and in the end you will have a mystery gnome, and it's a knit along and all that. So that is really, really cool, and I've only ever seen mystery knit alongs for shawls, so I think that's just a genius idea. And she's teamed up with a couple of different dyers who are providing sets for those of you who want sets. And Sabrina is one of the dyers, and Sabrina is the dyer behind Das Mondschaf. So both of them, Sarah and Sabrina, are giving away a set of yarn and pattern as a giveaway to the podcast. So that's really generous. So this is the yarn that one lucky winner will receive. It's 3 mini skeins of Das Mondschaf in the Pegasus base, which is the sock base. You also get a little bit of yarn for, I think, the hands of the gnome. And you will also be receiving the pattern by Sarah. So thank you to both of you for donating this prize. And because I won't be recording an episode next week, I will be in Paris next week, there will not be a podcast. What I have done is I've already started a thread in the group. So the group is linked right underneath this video. And if you want to enter, just go in the thread. And I have the prompt for the giveaway is to ask me a question or tell me a topic that you'd like me to talk about. And I will use that for like future question and answer giveaways and question and answer videos, more importantly. And I will leave the thread open until the 23rd of February. And then I will do something that I usually don't do, and that is I will get in touch with the winner directly via Ravelry, because this needs to go out so you have the yarn in time to start the knit along in March. So if you enter, please check your Ravelry messages eventually, because I will be contacting you directly and then sending out the prize to you as soon as I have your address. So thank you again for the giveaway, and I hope that you guys will enjoy it. Next up, we have 2 knit alongs running. We have the Happy Hand Spun Along, which I've talked about a couple of times, so I'm not going to go into details today, but you can find all the info in the group as usual. And I have started a new knit along, which is the Stranger Brews knit along. And that relates to both the pattern and the collection called Strange Brew by Tin Can Knits, of which I am just a gigantic fan. I will talk more about the pattern and my obsession with it later, but by talking to some of you guys through Instagram, I've realized that quite a lot of people are interested in hosting a knit along for both the collection and the pattern. So we're doing that as well. Again, you can find the information in the threads. It's going to be really informal, and I want to give us lots of time. So I'm thinking maybe we'll do a 3-month knit along. So you guys have a chance to finish sweaters, and I think there are also a couple of hat patterns in the collection. So if you want to do a smaller object, you can do that too. You can, for this one, also use children's or baby sweaters. The only obvious limitation is that it has to be based on either the Strange Brew pattern or any of the Strange Brew collection patterns from Tin Can Knits. And just to make it clear, I am not sponsored or affiliated or anything with any of these things. I just really like them, and it seems like a really fun pattern collection to do a knit along with. So that's happening in the group, and we will move swiftly on to finished objects, except I just realized that my finished objects are over there. So let me go get them, and then we'll talk about them. So where should we start? First up, I finished a pair of socks. These are the strappy socks that I knit for Kai. I knit these on 9-inch circulars, which is why I hated them, because I really wanted to like the 9 inches, but I just prefer to knit my socks on magic loop. I really tried so hard to like these needles, but I didn't. But that is why these socks became a bit of a labor of love in the end, because I didn't want to switch needles and techniques halfway through the socks, because that would definitely have affected my gauge. But I finished them nonetheless. The yarn for these is by Nicole C. Mendez in the Haunted House colorway. And that was a club colorway from Halloween 2017, I think. So these are done. I did afterthought heels with a leftover navy that I had in my stash, and they will go onto Kai's feet later today. That's my first finished object. My second finished object, which you may have seen in the intro of this video, is my Love You Baby Wrap by Susanne Sommer, who is Sosu Knits. This is a 3-color shawl using brioche and short rose and garter and moss stitch, and it's a really fun construction. I really enjoyed knitting it, except for the part that there is a lot of brioche in the first section, so you have to be prepared that it is a crap load of knitting. And if you're fine with that, it's a great pattern. You just don't underestimate it. But it is done, and I love it. I've been wearing this a lot when we were on our recent trip. The 3 colors that I use are going to be hard to show you guys, but I will try nonetheless. This light yarn is Tosh Merino Light in the Yoko colorway. The pink is Hedgehog Fibers in the XOXO colorway, which was actually a club colorway, so I don't think it is repeatable. And the navy is again from Sabrina of Das Mondschaf in the Moria colorway, and I still don't know the reference, so if anyone knows it, please let me know, because I am interested what Moria means or stands for. I'm assuming it's some kind of pop culture, but what do I know? So this is done. Really happy to have it done. Actually, I managed to snag this before even taking some FO pictures. I think the first day I wore this out, and that always happens to me with brioche. Even though this is a relatively tight gauge for brioche, I think I got it caught in my engagement ring when frantically trying on clothes in a store. And that always happens to me with brioche, so that's kind of sad, but such is life, and I think I managed to fix it mostly, and it's fine. No one will know. So that is my second finished object, and then my third finished object is what I am wearing. And this is my pride and joy, you guys. I love this sweater so much. This is the Dark Water sweater by Jennifer Steingas of Knit Love Wool on Instagram. I talked about so many of her designs because I kind of have knit them all, and I'm trying to knit all of them that I haven't finished yet. So this is a 2-color sweater with color work on the yoke. It is a top-down construction. It kind of looks mangled because I've got my microphone attached to it, but I will stand up and show you because I love the sweater. So, not sure what you can see now, but it just reaches my hips. I'll talk more about the length later. It's got 3/4 length sleeves and the fit is just really nice. So let's talk about the yarn first. The yarn that I used is Isaya Highland wool. So it's a 100% wool yarn. It has great yardage. I think it's about 500 and something meters per 100 grams. And it's a rustic yarn, but it's not super scratchy. I really liked it. I honestly didn't know if I was going to like it up until the second that I put this on my body. Like when knitting it and blocking it, I wasn't 100% sure. But now that it's done, it has created such a beautiful fabric. And I'm not sure if you can see, but it's just slightly heathered and it's just really beautiful yarn. The colorway is rhubarb and I think the light one is called almond, but I may be wrong about that one. And what did I do? I didn't buy enough yarn. I knew that I was going to have too little yarn when I started the pattern. I think I was missing like something like 400 meters or 400 yards. Quite a significant amount. But I decided to go ahead anyways, and I played yarn chicken and it worked out. But it was very close. So as you can see, I have 3/4 length sleeves, and that's not necessarily because I wanted them. It's because that's what I could do with the yarn that I had. And I know that I could have ordered more, but I didn't really want to play around with dye-ons and stuff. And it feels good to use up yarn. Like ordering more yarn and then only using a tiny bit of it always feels a bit like a waste to me. So I knew that I wanted to have the arms or sleeves in one color. I didn't want to have any like white brim or anything here. So I knit those. When I was halfway done with the body, I allocated one 50-gram ball for both sleeves, and that's what I got. I did my own decreases as I usually do, so they're quite fitted, and this is how far I got with 50 grams of yarn for both sleeves. And then I used the rest to finish off the body, and I really didn't know if it was going to be long enough. I did a very short rib on the bottom and decided that I'm just going to finish it, and if I don't like it, which was a very realistic option, I would then just rip out the ribbing and use the light yarn to do a longer ribbing. So I always knew, or I kind of knew, that there was a 50-50 chance that I may need to rip out in the end and reknit the bottom, but it turned out I tried it on and it fits really well and the length is just perfect. So I am incredibly happy with this sweater. I am so excited about it. I put it on today and just fell in love, and that's the best thing that can happen when you have new knitwear. So I think I'm going to wear this a ton, and I will see how the yarn wears because this is my first ever time knitting with this yarn. But if it continues to be nice, which I think it will be, this may definitely be a new favorite for me, and I might need to get some more in the future. I mean, after I've knitted through all of my kilos and kilos of stash, obviously. Anyways, it is done. I am super excited about it, and that is it in terms of my finished objects. So let's talk about some whips. First of all, I'm going to go through my sock projects rather quickly because they're just plain vanilla socks. And the first ones that I'm going to show you are my yak socks, and the yarn is from a dye that I don't think you will be able to get anywhere. This is from Circa's Wool Factory, and I got this yarn at a fair or a marketplace. So it seems that she doesn't really sell it online. It seems to be more of a dyer who just vends at different sort of locations and stuff. So I'm very sorry to show you something that is going to be possibly quite hard to get a hold of, but this is her yak sock base. So it's a merino yak and nylon base, which is the first time I've ever seen anything like it. And I have finished the first sock and I love it. It is super soft. It is incredibly soft, actually. I'm very curious to see how they will wear once the socks are done and worn and washed. But so far just knitting with it. I'm not sure if you can see the halo, but the yarn is just beautiful. So the first one is done, and I desperately need to cast on the second one because I'm kind of risking going into second sock syndrome. So I need to cast that on today and then just knit a plain vanilla sock. Next up, I have a new sock cast on, and this is the yarn that I showed you a couple of weeks ago that I got custom dyed for the podcast by my friend Ali, who has the Laughing Yaffle Etsy shop, and she's in the UK. And I sent her a couple of photos and color inspiration pictures because I wanted a really bright neon rainbow, and that's exactly what she did. So she let me name this colorway, which I named Oh Happy Day. And I had to cast on because it is just so fun, and I just needed some fun neon stripes in my life. So it's just a plain vanilla sock once again, and these make me so freaking happy, you guys have no idea. Very, very happy with this. I'm going to do an afterthought heel in the striping yarn as well. And yeah, I just love these. I love them so much. And they're going to be the happiest pair of socks that I've ever owned, I think. Like just looking at them makes me smile so much. I love it. I love it so much. So those are another pair of socks that are on the needles because I had to cast on more socks rather than finishing some. And next up, I have 2 sweater projects. And I'm sorry, I'm speeding up because now that it's hours later than I thought I was going to be podcasting, the light is coming in, and I have a feeling it's going to come straight into my face in a second. So I just want to get through the nitty content. So 2 garments are lying here next to me. The first one is going to be terribly hard to show you. Isn't it beautiful? This is my Harvest cardigan, which is a cardigan pattern by KAL Knits. And I am knitting it out of this yarn, which is essentially just roving. This is Plötulopi. So it's a Icelandic yarn or roving that is incredibly fragile when you're knitting with it. And I have now tangled myself with my microphone. There we go. But once you're done knitting with it, it's actually really, really nice. And let me try to show you what this actually is like. So this is a top-down cardigan. I'm going to stand up here so you can see it and mess up everything. And you knit the collar as you go. And as you can see, I'm doing some color blocking. So now I am actually on my last color, which is this dark purple. And I am basically knitting the bottom panel of the cardigan in garter stitch. And once that is done, the body will be finished, the collar is already finished, it just needs to be blocked out. And all that's left to do is the sleeves. So this is going to be a really cozy, comfy, oversized cardigan to wear at home and basically anywhere, but this was with the idea of having something when I'm working from home in winter. Just something really warm that you can throw on, but then you can take off easily before you overheat. This yarn is very interesting. I really like it, but it's definitely a rustic yarn. There are tons of hair sticking out of it. It's a little bit like knitting a blanket with arms. But yeah, I really like it. This is my second time knitting the Harvest sweater or cardigan. The first time I knitted too small, so I don't really wear it. So this time I'm going for a really oversized version, and I think it's going to be great. So that is that. And look, I didn't even break the yarn. I'm probably going to break it in a second. I do break the yarn quite frequently, I'm not going to lie. Not really while knitting on it, but more like when getting organized to knit with it and picking it up and putting it down. But it's not a big issue because you can just felt the tips back together, and when people talk about splicing, you don't need to use spit. You can use just any, like a drop of water, and it'll do the same thing. So you can just splice the yarn back together and it's as good as new. So that is my Harvest cardigan. The next sweater that I have to show you, I have a bit of a story attached to it. So let's talk about the yarn first. This yarn, which, let's see if it's going to focus. Oh, beautiful. This yarn is the famous Finial Gun or Finial PT2 by Roma. And this is one of the really famous yarns from Norway. So I think most of us in the knitting community found out about this yarn from Ellie of Scandia, who, I mean, we all love Ellie, right? And I went to Oslo with my friend Marion last year, which was amazing. And Marion, we totally need to do that again. And we brought home a big yarn haul, and I will shamelessly admit that I was the biggest yarn picker out of the two of us. And I brought home a ton of this yarn because I wanted to knit a couple of sweaters. And I brought home the colors that I'm about to show you because I wanted to knit the Silverlight sweater, which is also by Jennifer Steingass. This yarn is often knit at a fingering weight gauge, but I think it's about a sport weight in terms of its meterage. I had used it before with for a couple of mittens, and that worked out alright, but I knew that I was going to have problems with gauge because my gauge or my stitches tend to be bigger, and therefore it often doesn't match the gauge that patterns suggest. So the patterns that I wanted to knit, one of which was the Silverlight, had a gauge of 28 stitches per 4 inches, and a couple of others that I looked at were at 24 stitches per 4 inches. On a 3.5 millimeter needle, which is what I originally wanted to use, I had an 18 stitch gauge, so that was super far off. So I then went down to a 3 millimeter needles and I got a 22 stitch gauge, which again is much better, but still not what I needed. So then what I did, I just really wanted to knit with this yarn. I have been looking forward to knitting up my Norway yarn for ages. And I started looking at patterns on Ravelry by filtering by gauge, which you can do, which is amazing. But I couldn't really find anything that I liked. And at that point I was getting really annoyed because I just wanted to knit and I couldn't find anything. And then I stumbled across the Strange Brew pattern by Tin Can Knits. And what the Strange Brew pattern itself is, it's a recipe. So it's a ton of work that these ladies have put into this pattern, and what it does is it gives you instructions or a recipe for either a top-down or a bottom-up sweater, with or without shaping, in 3 different weights of yarn and a million sizes. And I found out that my 22 stitch gauge was perfect for their DK weight version. So I decided to knit a Strange Brew sweater out of my yarn using the DK weight measures and numbers and such. What the ladies do is they actually also give you a couple of colorwork charts that you can put in, but the idea is really that you make up your own and you combine them and you do your own thing. So you have the numbers and then you know how many stitches and how many rows of a certain pattern you need until you increase again, and you can then do your own thing, which is genius. So what I did is I actually ended up designing my own colorwork sweater, which is amazing. So this is what I came up with. What I did is I opened an Excel spreadsheet and then just started playing with colors and filling in little squares with the colors that I wanted and basically designing my own color work. I didn't even realize that Tin Can Knits also give you some color work ideas. I just made up my own charts as I was knitting it, and I could not be more excited about this sweater, you guys. I love it so much. In terms of the actual designs that I did, I'm not sure if they're the most genius charts, but they work. And they kind of work around the increases that you have to do. I also did my own short rows because I can't follow a pattern even if the pattern doesn't really force you to do anything. So I did a couple of short rows throughout the color work. So between those stitches here, there's a row of short rows, and then I put some further short rows down the back. And then separated for the sleeves, and as you can see, I'm almost done with the body. Oh my god, I'm just so excited about this. And this yarn, this phenol yarn is just everything that everyone talks about. Like it's just amazing. This yarn was meant to be color work. It is a 100% wool, non-superwash yarn. It just wants to be color work, and it's just it's squishy. It's not super soft, but it's also not super itchy. And I love it. I love it so much. And I love the colors as well. And when we were in Oslo, we went to, I think it was called Glass Magasinet or something, which is this huge store that have a wall of phenol yarn. So they have a million colors, and I feel like with this yarn and also the pattern, the possibilities are just pretty much endless. So I am very excited, and that's also what sparked the idea of the knit along. And lots of you guys seem to be into that as well. So I think I'm going to be knitting like a ton of these sweaters because the pattern is just genius, and you can just basically do whatever you want with it. If anyone is interested, I have actually uploaded my charts that I just made up from scratch onto Ravelry. So if you do want to look at them and use some of them, of course, just feel free to do that. I am doing the size medium on the DK weight. So of course, depending on what size and what weight you're using, the numbers are slightly different. But if you really want to, which I'm not sure if you would, but if you want to, of course, you can just look at the chart and figure it out. And yeah, I am in love with this. I think I've been knitting on this for 5 days, and I'm almost done with the body. And this is only my second ball of yarn, my second 50-gram ball of yarn. So I think I'm doing much better in terms of my yarn chicken game this time. So that's really, really great. All right, sorry, I feel like the light is kind of coming in and out, so that's making it hard for my camera to focus, but it'll be okay. The last work in progress that I decided to show you today is my northeasterly blanket, which is of course by Skynanigans, who is the designer, and I talked about this a lot in the past, so I'm not going to go into detail. Also, I'm doing a couple of modifications in terms of the joints, and you can find all of that information just by going onto my project page. But it's been a while since I showed it to you, so let me just organize it and show it to you. So this is where we are at. Last time I talked to you about it, I was in this tiny speckled blue square. So this is a modular blanket. If you don't know, you just use any kinds of sock yarn, scraps and minis, and you can just join as you go. So what I've done is I've knit another row. So I've kind of been going like just adding strips next to each other. And then I decided I wanted to go lengthwise. So I have actually knit a really long strip for the length that I wanted to be. So this is hard to show, but you kind of get the idea. And so now I'm kind of working full strips, because right now all of these stitches, they're all live stitches that I just put on hold on some waste yarn. But what I want to do now is I want to start completing actual strips, so then I will have more of a blanket and less of a million dangly bits. So I've really been enjoying it. My lovely friend Michelle actually sent me a huge box of minis, which has been really fun. So I've just been playing with minis and leftovers, and yeah, this is where we are with that. And I'm getting excited because it's looking more and more like a blanket. And yeah, I definitely fell back in love with it. All right, so that is it in terms of my works in progress. And now I will talk about some stash, because quite a lot of yarn has made it into my house. How did that ever happen? Maybe before I talk about my stash acquisitions, just very quickly, I'm recording this for the second time, and for the second time I've forgotten to bring around a book that I want to talk about. But I have been reading Clara Park's book, A Stash of One's Own. And what that is essentially a collection of essays on yarn stash by different designers and people in the knitting community. And this book is amazing, you guys. It's changed my life. I'm only halfway through and it's completely changed my knitting game. It's been so fascinating and interesting and emotional and inspiring to read through. I almost said to knit. No, I haven't knit the book. But I've been knitting while reading the book. And that talks a lot about stash. And I think people have different philosophies when it comes to stash. I know lots of people like to not have that much yarn because they feel like it's weighing them down and they only buy for projects. And obviously, have you met me? I'm not one of those people. I am more of the other sort of knitters who like to vicariously and always and constantly stash. I love finding yarn, I love buying yarn, and I don't mind if I buy yarn and don't knit with it right away. I have no problem with that. I think it's different if you're a designer, and obviously it's kind of weird if you design something and by the time you knit it up, the yarn is maybe discontinued because it's been in your stash for 3 years. But for me personally, yarn is very emotional, and the book talks a lot about your stash being manageable. And I look at my stash and it's completely manageable to me. Like, I know exactly what I have, I love what I have, and I have plans for all of them. The only thing that I'm lacking is the time to knit it. So more and more I'm reaching the conclusion that I need to work less so I can knit more. But that's not really happening right now. That's just an idea and not really anything that I'm seriously considering. Anyways, it's made me look differently at my stash, and it's made me decide to stop feeling bad about getting yarn, showing yarn, buying yarn, because we're all different. And I'm sure there's going to be a time in my life when I can't buy that much yarn, and maybe a time when I don't have enough, don't have so much knitting time or inspiration as well. So I'm just happily stashing away, and I would highly recommend that book if you're interested. Yeah, so let's talk about the yarn rather than talking about the stash. Where do we start? Let's just not go chronologically at all. Last weekend we took a trip, which was amazing, even though I got sick. Of course, I got sick on the last day of work and then kind of only really felt better when I got back to work. But still, it was really nice. And I wasn't planning on buying any yarn, famous last words, but I did go into a yarn store to pick up another needle. You can guess what happened. I didn't buy the needle, but I bought yarn, a sweater quantity. But, oh well. What I found is I've been seeing this yarn around a lot. There's a new range of yarns by Lang Yarns. And I think the range is called Wool Addicts. And they have different, like they have a more chunky base and different bases, and this is a love base, which again is so sweet. And the love base is a chain net construction, so it's a chain net yarn, and it comes in these tiny balls. I mean, how cute are they? These are 25-gram balls, and 25 grams are 125 meters, so it's a very light fingering weight yarn, and it's a 92% merino and 8% nylon superwash yarn. And I saw this and I really like the color. I actually have a hat in this color and I wear it all the time. And this is also, it's not really solid, it's slightly tonal, it is super soft, and I just think that this would be a great sort of loose fitting sweater that I could actually wear at work, because a lot of my sweaters I wouldn't really wear at work. I wouldn't wear this to work. I probably could, but we just have a bit more of a business casual look at work. Anyways, so I thought that this could become something, not necessarily the boxy, because that is way too much stockinette, but a sort of boxy style sweater. And I could knit it very loosely, and then I could even wear it with like dress shirts, and it would be amazing. So I got this, I got 10 balls of this to knit myself a sweater, and I'm very excited about it. Next up, my big order from Denmark arrived, and I talked about that before. I got yarn from Garnotsalk, which is, sorry, I'm looking around to look for a label, but it doesn't say it anywhere. But Garnotsalk is a Danish brand of yarn. I think it's kind of similar to Holzgarn or JC Rennie, like these sort of yarns. And I used their Black Hill wool in the past to knit my Emma yoke sweater, which I actually wore in the Q&A video last week in case you're interested, and I love the yarn. So I decided to order some more from Denmark, and it's really fun ordering from Garnotsalk because their page is in Danish and there's no like English features, so you have to order using Google Translate, and I'm always using the currency converter because I have no idea about Danish krones. And yeah, I just think that's really fun. And it only took a couple of weeks and all my yarn arrived. And first up, I got more of the same, essentially. This is exactly the Black Hill yarn that I used for my Emma yoke sweater. And it comes in these sort of pretty big cakes. They're 550 meters, so it's super light fingering weight yarn. And I talked about it enough in the past, so I'm not going to go into detail, but I really love it. And you only need 2 cakes to knit a sweater, at least for me, so that's great. And then I also got this, and this comes in 50-gram balls, but I am 99% sure it's exactly the same yarn, except that they have more colors in this yarn. And this, it already says it's pre-washed and ready to use. So whereas this needs a lot of blocking and washing to become really beautiful, I think this is exactly the same, except this has already been treated and washed and boiled up, so this is sort of more accessible to knit, but it's essentially the same thing. So I got myself a sweaters quantity in this as well, which I'm not quite sure why, because it's a light blue and it's not really my color, but I was looking at projects of this yarn on Ravelry, as you do, and it just felt like the right thing to do. So I got a sweaters quantity of this, as well as a sweaters quantity of this, and yes, I got 2 purple sweater quantities. But they are different purples, right? Slightly. And with this sweater quantity, I also just got a single ball of this because it was on sale, and maybe I want to do color work. I mean, it's likely if you know me. So yeah. That was supposed to be it, except they had a ton of sock yarn on sale, so I decided to pick up some of this, and I think I got all of this for like $3, which is insane. But this is also where my Google Translate failed, because I thought all of this was the same yarn. All of this is called Sock It. So and these are all 50 grams. So what I did is I ordered a neon yellow, green, and a gray to knit a pair of socks for Kai, and then this combination to knit a pair of socks for myself. Except that these 2 bases are completely different. So this one, which comes in a ball, is also called Socket, but this is a 75% lamb's wool and 25% nylon, whereas this is clearly either a different wool or possibly even a merino. So if you hold them next to each other, you can see that they look very different. And while I love the colored one, I don't really love this. I'm not sure if you can see, it almost looks like cotton or linen. It is super splitty and it doesn't feel rough, but it doesn't really, it feels more like very thin. And while I'm sure it's a nice yarn, it's not really what I would consider making socks out of. And I definitely don't want to, I'm kind of OCD and I don't like combining bases that don't go together, so I don't think that's a great combination. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with these two. These 2 I really like, but I can't really combine them to make a pair of socks because Kai wouldn't want pink, purple in his socks. But thankfully, I have a huge stash, so I can just combine these with something else and they will become something in the future for sure. And I could always do baby knits, and I mean, this would be a cute baby knit, right? Anyways, so that is my Danish yarn haul. And then there's a little bit of a treat left over, which is because I treated Kai to a pair of socks. If you don't know, Kai is obsessed with the game StarCraft 2, which is an online computer game. And he's very much obsessed with it in the way that I'm obsessed with knitting. And he recently reached a new milestone, and for that he needed accordingly colored socks, and this is exactly the color that he needed. Not going to go into StarCraft detail because I think most of you won't be interested, but I got him a skein of this yarn. This yarn is by Tausendschön, who is a German dyer that I don't mention often enough. She's one of the very first indie dyers in Germany that I ordered yarn from when I got into the whole yarn thing. And I think her yarn is quite popular within Germany. Don't ask me if there's ship overseas or if they have an English page. I don't know. I'm very sorry. But they sell a lot of this sort of, it's just a 75-25 wool and polyamide blend, but it's a really nice soft base. So I have socks that I knit out of this base years ago, and it's way softer than like Regio or anything, but it holds up amazingly well. So last year I knit a pair of, you may remember, it was like a brownie, orange and gray socks for KAL out of this yarn, and they have been holding up much better than most of his other socks, so I thought he deserved another skein of this yarn. And this yarn, it was just screaming that it really, really, really didn't want to be traveling by itself. So how could I say no to the poor yarn? So I got myself one of the two colors that I've been wanting to get from them for ages, and they're always sold out. So this one is not a repeatable one, but this one is Liebelei. And I've been wanting to get this one for ages, so I'm super happy to have gotten it. And it's been a while since I got myself a single skein of sock yarn, so I don't feel bad about it. And there's another one in their shop which I desperately need. It's, I think, called Schokominte or Chocolate Mint. And it's like similarly dyed, except it's mint on one side and like chocolate brown on the other. And I totally need that. So I hope at some point I manage to snag that from their shop. But anyways, we got these two and I'm very happy about them. And we will see how long it takes me to knit up these socks for KAL, but I'm not going to stress myself about it. So yeah, after all that, that is it in terms of stash for this week. And that's also it in terms of the knitting content. So if you're only here for that, I will see you in 2 weeks' time. If you do want to stick around, I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes talking about what's been going on. So, it's been 2 weeks. Last week I recorded a question and answers video which went up, and thank you to everyone who left kind comments. I never really know how you guys feel about these kinds of videos, but you guys seem to like it, which is great because I might do a couple more of those in the future. But it's been 2 weeks, so last weekend we went away. It was a little bit unfortunate because I had a couple of vaccinations a couple of days earlier, and then I got quite sick, and I thought it was just a side effect, which you sometimes get, and that's perfectly normal. But in the end, I think I may have just gotten the flu. So on the Friday before we left, I was working from home and I was feeling quite sick, and really only started to feel better the day I returned to work. So what a good employee am I. But anyways, we still went, we still had plenty of fun. We took it slow, but it was just nice. We spent 4 days near the Alps, and I did a lot of knitting, which you have probably realized after seeing what I've finished and been knitting throughout this podcast. We also had a lot of snow, which was very, very fun. You will have seen a couple of photos in the beginning of the episode. And it was just all around a good trip. We managed to get a couple of wedding planning things out of the way as well, because guess what? In 6 weeks' time, I will be married. That is insane. So yeah, and then, I mean, the week passed pretty quickly. On Thursday, I was back to work and everything worked out quite well. And we have another busy week coming up because I'm actually traveling for work already on Sunday night because we have a big event on Monday. And then I have next Friday off because we are going away again. So for Christmas, KAL gave me the gift of a trip to Paris, which we have been wanting to take for pretty much 5 years now. If you have watched this podcast, you will know how much we love France. We love everything French. And we never made it to Paris together. So we finally are going, and I am beyond excited. I still haven't decided if I'm going to La Bien-Aimée. Really, I don't need more yarn. Really, if I needed more yarn, I could always order it online whenever I need it, but then it's La Bien-Aimée. So I haven't made my mind up yet. Yeah, I can't. I don't know. I don't know. But anyways, we'll be in Paris, so that is also why I won't be recording a podcast episode next week, but there will be one in 2 weeks' time. So I think that is all for me to talk about today. Now I'm just really, really hoping that this time the recording will have worked, and if it did and you're watching, then thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for interacting with me, whether it's on Instagram or Ravelry or in the YouTube comments below. I hope you have a great 2 weeks, have a lovely weekend, and you have lots of fun with your knitting. I will see you soon. Thank you for watching. Happy knitting. Bye!